You've probably heard this advice before. Once you start investing, everything compounds. Your first $100,000 is the hardest. Just get your money into the market as early as possible. And technically, that advice is correct. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people who start investing don't feel confident. They don't feel secure. They don't feel ahead. They feel fragile. They check their bank balance before buying small things. They hesitate before saying yes to plans. They invest money while quietly hoping nothing goes wrong. And that's not because they're bad with money. It's because almost nobody explains why your first $10,000 matters more than your next $100,000 ever will. Welcome to Boring Finance, and I spend way too much time thinking about why your first $10,000 matters more than your next $100,000 ever will. If you're someone who's saving, investing, or trying to balance both, but still feels like one unexpected expense could knock you backward, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because this video isn't about getting rich faster, it's about becoming financially hard to break. Here's the belief almost everyone begins with. More money equals more security, so people naturally focus on returns, growth rates, optimizing portfolios, trying to squeeze every percentage point out of the market. And later on, that matters. But early on, returns don't protect you. Stability does. And this is where the first $10,000 quietly does more work than any investment strategy ever could. Let's be honest, your first $10,000 isn't impressive. It won't change your lifestyle. It won't buy you freedom. But it completely changes how your life reacts to stress. Before $10,000, a car repair feels catastrophic, a medical bill feels permanent, a bad month feels like failure. After $10,000, problems become manageable, mistakes become survivable, decisions slow down. And slowing down is underrated because panic is expensive. Let's talk numbers. If you invest $10,000 at a strong 8% annual return, you earn about $800 per year. Nice, helpful, but not life-changing. Now compare that to what $10,000 does outside the market. It prevents credit card debt at 20–25%, emergency loans, late fees, selling investments during downturns. Avoiding just one high-interest mistake can outperform years of market returns. That's not emotional, that's math. Here's what most people don't realize. Early in your financial life, liquidity beats return. Liquidity means you can access money when life happens. You don't sell investments at the worst time. You don't panic when markets drop. Without liquidity, investing becomes fragile, and fragile systems don't compound, they break. Finance content loves clean charts and long-term averages, but real life doesn't move in straight lines. Jobs change, expenses spike, income pauses, life interrupts. And when you don't have a buffer, even good investing decisions can turn into bad outcomes. Not because the investment was wrong, but because the timing was forced. Your first $10,000 isn't about returns, it's about survival. And survival always comes before compounding.
Something subtle happens after you cross your first $10,000. Not on paper, not in a spreadsheet, but in your head. Before that point, money feels fragile. Every expense feels like a threat. Every decision carries weight. After that point, money starts to feel quieter, and that quiet is powerful. Psychologists use a term called cognitive bandwidth. When money is tight, your brain is constantly busy, worrying about timing, avoiding mistakes, replaying decisions, preparing for emergencies. That mental load reduces your ability to think long-term. But when you have a financial buffer, your brain changes gears. You start planning instead of reacting, thinking months ahead, not days, making calmer investing decisions. Your first $10,000 doesn't just change your finances, it upgrades your mental operating system. And that upgrade compounds faster than money ever could. This is uncomfortable, but true. Some people with average incomes outperform higher earners over time, not because they're smarter, not because they invest better, but because they're more stable. They don't panic sell. They don't interrupt compounding. They don't make desperate decisions. Stability quietly beats brilliance. Yes, your next $10,000 matters. It improves lifestyle. It creates options. It increases comfort, but it doesn't unlock a new psychological layer. It doesn't suddenly remove fear. It doesn't prevent emergencies. It doesn't protect you from bad timing. The foundation was already built earlier. The first 10,000 changes how you react to life. Everything after that just scales. Here's a mistake disciplined people make. They hear, be aggressive when you're young, so they invest everything. They minimize cash. They maximize exposure. They optimize spreadsheets. What they don't account for is volatility in life, not markets. Jobs change. Expenses spike. Income fluctuates. Life happens. And when savings are too low, investing becomes brittle. Brittle systems don't bend under stress. They snap. Most people don't fail because they chose bad investments. They fail because they were forced to touch good ones. They sell at the wrong time. They interrupt compounding. They lock in losses permanently, not due to ignorance, but due to fragility. Your first $10,000 doesn't make you wealthy. It makes you durable, and durability is what allows wealth to grow in the first place.
There's a phrase that sounds dramatic, but it explains almost every investing failure.
The worst possible time to sell is when you have to. And yet, that's exactly when most people end up selling. Not because they want to, not because they think it's smart, but because life gives them no other choice.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The market doesn't hurt you when it's down. The market hurts you when you're forced to sell while it's down. Let's say you invested $10,000. The market drops 30%. Now you're at $7,000. If you can leave it alone, historically, you're probably fine. But if you need that money, you don't just lose market returns. You lock in losses, you miss recoveries, and you permanently shrink your financial base. This isn't bad investing. It's bad timing driven by lack of savings. Let's compare two people. Person A invests $10,000, keeps only $1,000 in savings, faces a $3,000 emergency, sells investments during a downturn, locks in a $3,000 loss. Person B invests $7,000, keeps $4,000 in savings, handles the emergency without selling, leaves investments untouched. Even though Person A invested more, Person B ends up richer, not because of returns, but because of resilience. Now you might be thinking, okay, but cash doesn't earn anything. True, but cash has an invisible return. It buys you time, flexibility, better decisions, emotional stability, and those things compound just as aggressively as money does. Psychologists call this cognitive bandwidth. When you're not stressed about money, you make better choices, including investing choices. Here's a mistake disciplined people make. They hear, be aggressive when you're young, so they invest everything. What they don't account for is volatility in life, not markets. Jobs change, expenses spike, life happens, and when savings are too low, investing becomes fragile. Fragile systems don't survive stress, they break.
Saving becomes more important than investing when a single unexpected expense would force you to sell investments. Your income is unstable or unpredictable. Your fixed expenses consume most of your paycheck. You're investing money you might need within 3 to 5 years. Market volatility affects your sleep, not just your portfolio. At that point, investing more doesn't increase wealth. It increases risk of failure. Now, you might be thinking, but what if I miss out on gains? Yes, you might. But missing out on potential gains is very different from guaranteeing real losses. No one goes broke from slightly delayed investing. People go broke from being forced sellers. Here's what most people don't realize. The goal isn't to invest as much as possible. The goal is to invest as much as you can safely leave alone. That number is different for everyone, and it changes over time. Here's a boring but effective approach. Build 3 to 6 months of essential expenses in savings. Separate emergency money from investment money mentally. Invest only money you won't touch during stress. Increase investing after stability improves, not before. Reevaluate whenever income or expenses change. This isn't conservative, it's durable. Almost every long-term successful investor you admire had one thing in common early on. They survived. Not because they timed the market, but because they didn't get knocked out of it. Saving isn't giving up on investing. Saving is what allows investing to work. It's the quiet foundation nobody brags about. And yes, it's boring, but boring is reliable. If this video helped you think more clearly about your own timing, give it a thumbs up. It tells the algorithm this kind of calm, honest finance content matters. And if you want more explanations about money without hype, without panic, and without pretending everything is always optimal, subscribe to Boring Finance, because boring is how you actually win.